What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Fandom Fix. I'm Roman, that's Austin, and we are here to talk about the new animated film, Light of the World. It follows the life of Jesus from the perspective of his youngest disciple, John, who, for the purposes of this movie, was about the age of 13 or 14.
Yep.
The Bible does not tell us exactly how old he is. It says that he's a young man. He's the youngest disciple.
Yep.
I've often believed it's about 17, but in Jewish culture, you're a man at 13. So this would track with that, but we'll talk a little bit more about this movie. Austin, what did you think about it?
Yeah, I think the way they portrayed this movie was interesting because, you have it from the perspective of a young John. And there's, what's great about, honestly, this movie is that there's been so many Jesus projects this year. King of Kings was another animated movie. We obviously have the success of The Chosen. And then, just to have stuff like this for families, for Christians, it's really encouraging that they're making stuff like this, especially with high caliber animators like Tim Bancroft and his brother, Tom Bancroft and his brother. And these guys were, Disney animators, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I love the perspective because I think it doesn't take away from the actual biblical accounts, what actually happened, but it gives us the perspective of what was the life of Jesus like through a disciple and someone who was as young as John. And I thought that the animation in this was awesome. I thought that, it's 2D animation. When's the last time that we get stuff like that? It's very few and far between. That Looney Tunes movie that came out earlier this year was another one, but we don't get 2D animation movies very often. Most of the things are 3D animated. And so that brought a real charm to the movie. Mm-hmm. And even though this movie's an hour and a half, it's scrunched down. And so we get a very fast adaptation of the biblical account. But what I really liked is they touched upon really personal elements of Jesus's relationship with the disciples and the people that he healed.
Right.
Yeah, you get some of the events of him meeting the disciples pushed together really quickly, but you get the account of him healing Mary Magdalene of the demons, and that was really powerful. And then you get the relationship that he had with John the Baptist, and even like little John's perception of what was going on with John the Baptist. And I love that the family element was there with John and James's parents, Zebedee and his mother. And just, I don't know, like they continue to show us the true Jesus of his personality, of who this man was, of who the Son of God was. Because I think sometimes as Christians or even people who are new to the faith, they read the Bible and they skim through they go through these accounts. And even as somebody who's been reading it for years, you read through it and you're just like, you kind of just like don't always see the weight of it or really like notice some of the things that Jesus is doing or just how he was as a person here on this earth. And stuff like this shows us, really that relational aspect of Jesus. And I love that he carried that, obviously we are all creations of God. He loves every single one of us, and he truly came to earth to point us all to the kingdom of God, to save us from our sins, to have that personal relationship with us. And this movie did exactly that. Mm-hmm. And honestly, it was pretty brutal for a kids movie. I'm not gonna say it was amazingly brutal, but there were some parts. The crucifixion, they did a pretty solid job of portraying that for kids and families. Even after he resurrected at the end of the movie, you see the holes in his feet and in his hands, and it was kind of like jarring to see like these giant holes in this man.
Right.
And just the stuff with the Pharisees, I thought they did a really good job of portraying that relationship, especially with Nicodemus and how he was seeking. And then we had a little fun reference in this to Joseph of Arimathea. If you guys don't know who that is, that's the man whose tomb Jesus was buried in because he was a rich man.
Who's really only mentioned in the Bible at that moment.
Yeah, he's only mentioned in the Bible at the end of the gospel accounts. But in this movie, he actually was another chief priest. And we find out at the end of the movie that is Joseph of Arimathea. He was blind, and Jesus healed him from the blindness. And so, I don't know, there's a lot of cool elements in this, different than King of Kings, but still provided the very heavy weight of the gospel and of who Jesus is, and still what he calls us towards today. And I'll end before I pick it over to you. Jesus makes a quote in this movie after John the Baptist dies, and he says, "Sometimes evil people kill those who speak the truth." And that has always been the case, but considering where we're at in our world today with so many people getting killed, whether it's school shootings or big public figures being assassinated, it's very true still to this day same demons, different day. So,
and mind you, this movie came out 5 days before a lot of those things happened. So it was very interesting timing. But, this movie, what I mentioned, we talked about how there were a lot of, I don't want to say mature, but, pretty sophisticated things for a children's movie, which is ultimately what this was. We mentioned The Chosen. That's another thing The Chosen did well was get you to realize like Jesus was fully God and fully man, and how he dealt with this stuff as a man, even though he knows what his truer calling is.
And you shouldn't shy away from that for kids. Kids should know the way to that.
No, and there was even some pastoral concepts. There was a moment where after Jesus is crucified, before they see him on dry land, Peter and Andrew and James and John are on the boat fishing again, and our pastor often talks a lot about when Peter feels like he's messed up, so he goes back to his old life as a fisherman almost immediately. And in the movie, Andrew is like, why are we going back to our old life as fishermen when we've encountered Jesus? So it was almost like this pastoral concept, or this pastoral observation of that. But what I really want to talk about is you started talking about the animation of this, and this was done by twin brothers, Tom and Tony Bancroft, who both at different times worked for Disney Animation, and Tom specifically left Disney several years ago to focus more on his faith. And people know Tom's work, and Tony's for that matter too, but Tom was responsible for Pocahontas, and he was the chief animator for young Simba in The Lion King. A lot of the things we grew up on, and the way animation works is that there's so much to go on that certain animators are assigned different characters. Yep. And Tom Bancroft is credited with the invention of Mushu from Mulan. So one of the best, funniest characters in our childhood Disney stuff, Tom Bancroft is responsible for. But another thing that's important to note, something that the Bancroft twins were responsible for, I'm sitting there, I'm watching this movie, and I'm like, this animation looks really familiar. And the thing that I came closest to as far as what the animation reminded me of was Emperor's New Groove. And I got a hunch in the middle of the movie, and you even looked over and said, what are you looking up? And I looked it up, and Tony Bancroft, well, they both worked on it, but Tony Bancroft was one of the animation leads for Emperor's New Groove and was responsible for the animation of Kronk.
Yeah.
So it would make sense that the animation was very similar.
Very cool.
But it was good to see these guys, they left Disney, and obviously Disney's gone off in a different direction, but these guys coming together, twin brothers, to make this Christian film, and this is what their focus is now. So it was a really interesting thing to make those connections between movies that we've loved and the animators that brought them to life. So I wanted specifically to talk about the look of this movie, and it kind of more reminded me of, how when Disney made TV show versions of some of their movies, like Emperor's New School, and the animation was 2 and 3, and the animation was slightly different.
Yeah.
It was the same, but not really.
Yeah.
Tony Bancroft did not have anything to do with Emperor's New School, but the animation more reminded me of that.
Yes.
Slightly different, but not really. So it was interesting, again, to see these similarities of the animation that we're familiar with. But
yeah, absolutely. I think what's cool about this movie is that we see high-profile animators like this doing Christian projects, doing Jesus-focused storytelling. And, frankly, our world needs this. Families need this type of wholesome, gospel-centered storytelling that we don't normally get in Hollywood. And so it's encouraging to see, more independent, companies and creators go out there and do their own thing. And I hope that we get more like this. But if you've seen this movie, we would love to know what you think out there of Light of the World. Did you love it? What were your thoughts? What were your favorite parts of this? Did you enjoy that 2D animation? And have you seen, the story of these animators? Are you familiar with their work and what they're doing nowadays in their careers? So we would love to know. So like this video, make a comment down below, and subscribe to our channel. But until next time, we are Fandom Fix. See ya.